welcome to Quality of Life Radio, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
So are you in a relationship with a difficult person? What are the questions you ask?
And if
so, what do you do about that? Well, we've got Sarah Elliston back on Big Blend Radio's Quality of Life show today to talk about, are you in a relationship with a difficult person? And if so, what to do, how to have those conversations without the drama. Sarah is the author of the book Lessons from a Difficult Person, How to Deal with People Like Us. In fact, an excellent place to go and work with. She's got like all kinds of great tests and information and advice and tips. So that's a really good book to pick up, especially if you find out if you're in a relationship or working with someone that's a difficult person. Of course, it's on Amazon, all those great places. But you can go to her website, author-sarah-elliston.com. And, she's a faculty member of the William Glasser Institute. She's a workshop leader and trainer who is certified in values realization, parent effectiveness training, and reality therapy. And again, her book, Lessons from a Difficult Person, she has an article series up on blendradioandtv.com, and we feature her articles and interviews also in Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. And she posted an article on finding out if you're in a relationship with a difficult person. It's up right now if you go to blendradioandtv.com. Sarah, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm fine.
Hey, good. So you must not be in a relationship with a difficult person.
Not at the moment, except for my cat. But, you can't change cats. So
no, you can't. They rule the roost. The difficult person part is, it's interesting because I think sometimes we deep down know, if and when we've been in those relationships. I know I have, and we don't need to air my dirty laundry, but there's that period of not really wanting to look at it yourself. You become miserable, and you maybe say the wrong things, or it becomes argumentative if you start to have that communication. But deep down, if this is a difficult person, but it's sometimes hard to face facts, if you're, I think.
I think it's hard to face facts, and sometimes it sort of sneaks up on you, and you don't even realize it. Difficult people are typically argumentative and critical, but not always. They could be just really controlling. And in a subtle way, they can chip away at your self-esteem or your beliefs, and then they want to do it their way because then it makes so much sense. And you think, well, sure, okay, that makes sense. And it isn't until you have some distance from the situation that you think, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to do. And if you get into a relationship in your teens or even in your 20s, I think sometimes we aren't aware of when we're kind of like giving in. I'm a difficult person, so I spent my whole marriage making sure that no one was going to pull any wool over my eyes, and being skeptical of things that my husband did. He's the least difficult person you could find. So he tells really good stories, and I got tired of some of his stories, but, he was not a difficult person. I think, you can, when you're in a relationship with a difficult person when you don't want to answer their phone calls, or you cringe when you see them, or you say, I don't want to go to that event because this person's going to be there, and they always, they're unkind to me, or they always talk about themselves and they never talk to me, or even look at me, Go ahead.
I was going to say there's people too that you can be in a relationship with, and they're not always, romantic, but a working relationship, or, and any kind of colleague, or, just community member, so there are people there.
That's the hardest one.
Yeah, they're really nice. And then you start to go, oh, you know what, you take your first instinct and just put it aside, be nice. Meantime, maybe you just like, dude, they were mean one time, right? And then you try again, and then they're nice, and then the next time they're nice. And then you're like, you know what? I was really wrong about this person. And then the third, fourth time, suddenly, like, where was that meanness coming from? And so that's sometimes the tricky thing, is to find out, you know, if they challenge you on something that you really didn't expect them to challenge you on, or you know, that kind of thing. Whereas they may have, you know, said, "Oh, I'm in full support of this," and then next thing you know, they change their mind.
Or their way of being supportive is the opposite of yours. You know, I'm in support of it, so let's do it this way.
or when they say, "Let's play the devil's advocate," and you're like,
"Oh, here
boy.
comes the devil."
Yeah.
Well, I part of the whole premise that I operate from, since it was true for me, is that difficult people have no understanding that they're difficult. So the person that you're describing, who sometimes is nice and sometimes isn't, or says she supports you and then seems to undercut your authority or your ideas or whatever, they don't know they're doing that. It's just the way they've always operated, and no one has ever told them to stop. It's kind of that simple. Some of the behaviors that are typical, a difficult person's often critical, complains a lot. They're very judgmental. They might be a gossip, and that's certainly in a work environment with a colleague, that can be really tough, because if you get caught up in a gossip triangle, or, you know, a group of people who gossip, it gets very dramatic and very nasty. And if you're not, and everybody's gossiping about you, that's no fun either. People who are difficult can be naggy, or they blame others. They're typically kind of defensive, and, you know, feel in competition with everybody, and they punish and threaten. You know, they're just not. Those are kind of toxic behaviors that will kill a relationship. And I had a couple of relatives growing up who, you know, they called me Sarah first. My name's Sarah, and they called me Sarah. And it was like, that is not my name. And I would correct them, and they would laugh. And then I would say something, I'd say, "Oh, you've just got such interesting ideas. Oh, aren't you sweet?" And you know, maybe I was in 8th grade, 6th or 7th grade, something like that. And I thought I was trying to have a conversation with my relative, and they were just treating me like I was a little kid. And so I don't know where that fits in the little list of behaviors that I just recited, but putting people down, patronizing can be, and that's part of that whole control issue. And I've recently begun to think that a lot of this behavior comes from having an internal voice in their head that says they're not good enough. And I think a lot of us have that little voice.
And it'll come in according to situations. So you may be not a difficult person for all these different activities or communications, and then we'll get to one thing, and that's it, because that's your insecurity hotspot. You know?
I had an intimate partner turn to me after, we'd been together a good 6 months, and we were having some kind of a fight, and he turned to me and said, "Do not use sarcasm with me." And I said,
well, alrighty then.
But sarcasm is, I think sarcasm is clever.
Well, it can be. I had somebody just the other day say, you know, one of the things I love about you is your sneaky sarcasm. I thought, oh dear, I thought I'd gotten over being sarcastic. But he was so
it's a
clear.
clever way of saying something.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, comedians use sarcasm all the time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right. But he didn't think it was funny, and I'm sure it was nasty sarcasm. I think what I was pointing out, that his creeds didn't match his deeds in a sarcastic way. But I've never forgotten when he said that to me. I thought, okay, this guy has boundaries. Good. You know, this is healthy.
Well, I also think that people get into two difficult people in one relationship.
Ooh.
That's when drama happens. And it's like, I know people that love each other, you know, like there's that, it's like, what was the War of the Roses, that movie?
Oh, that was fun.
Remember that with Kathleen, was it Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas? Michael Douglas. And I mean, here's this hot, passionate love affair, and then next thing you know, they're swinging from chandeliers, not in a sexy way, in a I'm going to kill you way, you know. And so I wonder about that, like when
they pushed each other's buttons.
Exactly. Yeah. See, now that's where Nancy and I have had to work as a mother-daughters. We know each other's buttons, and it's like that's it. And you learn, like, okay, this is where we're going, and that is the interesting thing, I think, in you know, when it's a really close relationship, people know, and then you have to think, why am I saying this at this time? What is the goal? And if you let yourself go over those lines, then we're all being
childish.
Yeah, it's
Well, but we may not know it because we've been doing it all our lives, and no one's ever told us to stop. So actually, what you describe about you and your mom knowing what's going to push your buttons, and or being able to one of you turn to the other and say, okay, that's far enough on that topic, or something like that. If anybody listening to this is thinking, gee, this isn't feeling good, there's something wrong here, what am I doing wrong? That's usually my thought, is, oh dear, what am I doing wrong? You could stop and really carefully look at the behavior of the other person. It's not as easy as it sounds. We usually know how we feel and what we're thinking, but we're not always aware of what we are actually doing, what the actions are. And I can guarantee you that the difficult person doesn't know their actions either. So the first challenge is to try and clarify what the actions are, and to say, well, you're using sarcasm on me. They may or may not go with that. But if you say, you said these words to me, and the tone of voice felt sarcastic and it hurt, was it intentional? And if they're like my mother, they'll say, oh, you just have a thin skin.
Oh yeah. That's a typical one, right?
Right. So when we think about it, first of all, we want to be really clear on what the behavior is. But secondly, we have to look at what they're doing. Like my mother would just say, oh, you just have a thin skin, you're too sensitive. It was her way of understanding me. It was almost a habit for her to just label me that way. And I was this little 2-year-old kicking and screaming and saying, no, look at me, I'm more than that. What I'm saying has value. And she wasn't able to do that, but I don't, it's fine now. But I did have to get to a point where I realized that she wasn't doing it deliberately to put me down or ignore me. It was just her way. That was what worked for her. And if she was still here and she was cogent and we were talking, I would talk to her about it as a habit and as a way of looking at me, and maybe there's other parts of me. So
I think sometimes parents don't get to, they don't realize how quickly their kids are growing up and how quickly they change, especially today's world. And so your what you start at, how you treat a 2-year-old, stays until maybe they're 4 and 5, instead of moving along. And so I think part of it comes from that you don't change as quick as your child does.
No, because you've kind of identified your child. And I watched a father with a 2-year-old yesterday in the warm water, saltwater pool that they have at my sports club for people who have arthritis and things like that. And he was in there with him, and the little boy was throwing a ball into the basket. He was lifting the little boy up, and he'd throw the ball in. And that man was so focused on his son. And I was there a half an hour, and I don't, the son talked to me once or twice because I threw him a ball when he came over in my direction. But the father never really, didn't even acknowledge I was there. He was so focused, and I thought, that is such a gift for a parent to do that. It's pretty unusual, I think, to be that focused on a child for that length of time. And they were still there when I left, and they were there when I got there. So who knows how long they did it. But I had a lot of hope for their relationship.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I think it's also in a world that is so stressful. I know we talk about this all the time, but I really believe we're so harried, and communication, the more stressful a person is, the more difficult they're going to be. And it is true because people lash out. I know what I'm like when things just get too crazy. Sometimes I just have to say walk away because you're starting to lose it, and that's not fun. And you become not necessarily the nicest person because you're under the ball. It could be like, get this done by this time, this. And I think our not just our country, but around the world, we have put ourselves into like a flat spin. And so your thoughts are not focused. Your communication is not of the clearest. And it could be very clear on a nasty front, but we're not really in focused and in the moment. Hey, the 8 keys of excellence, the third key, this is it, live in the now. And it's about focus.
It can be difficult if you're feeling a lot of pressure. That's what you're talking about, it being stressed and having all these things to do, and then someone wants to stop and ask them or do something that gets in your way. So we can sometimes lash out. But if it's happening over and over again, and you are able to be really clear about the words that they're saying and the actual actions, if they're walking around or trying to have a conversation with you with their arms crossed, which is definitely defensive, that kind of thing, and you can identify it and you're willing to talk to them, then and you're willing to see that it's that they're not deliberately trying to be mean. Even when you get stressed and you might say to someone, I'm sorry, I've got to get this finished, you've probably got a strong enough relationship with whoever it is that they're not going to take it personally that you're hurting them. It's just you have X amount of time and you've got to finish this work. I think one of the things about difficult people is that they do take a lot of things personally because somewhere inside they still don't feel good enough. So in the article and in my book, I talk about having a conversation with this person and being able to listen to whatever they throw back at you. Oh, you're too. The last time my mother said, "Oh, yeah, you've always been too sensitive," and I smiled and said, "Who said it was too sensitive? That's your judgment. I'm just sensitive." And she said, "Oh, okay." That was pretty good for my mom. It was about 8 years ago. So before I'd written the book and before I'd really clarified all this, but I didn't want to argue with her. I didn't want to fight with her, but I really wanted her to see how I felt when she said some of these things to me. If she was alive today, I would say, do you really, it's your judgment that it's too sensitive, that I'm overly sensitive. Maybe I'm really sensitive and lots of other people are too. And maybe, maybe they're feeling hurt. I mean, is that what you really want?
You have to have that conversation and be honest and kind of brace yourself for something because hopefully they may have that emotional drama back again and you've probably been through it before, so you kind of brace yourself and know exactly you're going to have a reaction to deal with. Definitely.
Well, none of us like to be told that what we're doing, like when my then boyfriend said to me, don't use sarcasm with me, and I went, ooh, internally I just all shrunk into a little tiny person and said, oops. And then the other part of me said, hey, hallelujah, he's got boundaries. He knows what he wants. This guy's more mature.
But I'd be like, don't tell me what to do. That's my response. See?
Well, I was angry, and I knew I had used sarcasm. I wasn't happy about it, but he wasn't hearing me. And so at that point, I was able to stop and say,
you could have said, you're too sensitive.
Yeah, I would never do that to someone.
But that's the thing about having to, because I'm a sensitive person in that, I remember being really young and being upset about something and it wasn't like some huge deal, but it was, and Nancy said, no, you're that kind of person. You feel, and feeling is good, and you want to be a writer in your life, and then you need to take this and channel it so that you're not, hurt all the time. You know what I mean? That you've got to learn how to handle it. But this is who you are, because you could tell that's who I was. And it's like you get upset about things. You can't live your life being upset about everything that makes you upset. You've got to have that breather and teach yourself what really matters, and you do have to set boundaries. You do. And know who you are. And I think even like with our business here with the magazine and radio shows and dealing, we've dealt with some things that are really, really hard topics that, I know we have to cover them, and I know that it personally affects me because they're really, really harsh. And, I mean, we've dealt with everything from sexual abuse to the slaughter of wildlife. Everything. I think everything. And you have to brace yourself. And at some point you still have to deal with it. I can't help but when it's really bad, not, feeling it, but you have to learn to process it and not allow it to physically hurt you. And that's okay to have. It's okay to be sensitive. It's a good thing. You, Nancy, used to say it's better than you not.
Well, you can't go through the world with no feelings. So
I think what my mom meant was that I take everything personally. That's if she had been able to put words to it differently, that's what she would have said.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that in it. I think that most of us really do have a degree of insecurity, and it plays out in different ways with different people at different times. But I don't think anybody's really 100% secure within all aspects of their personality. I don't see how you possibly could be.
We're human,
Yeah. So I mean, it's just,
so we're all difficult people.
Well, we have elements of difficultness.
Yeah.
Or people really, in our lives are maybe having trouble with us right now. It's we might be really irritating somebody this particular time, or there might be someone that's irritating you. I think that the what am I trying to say? I think what has helped me when I've been in this situation, when there's someone that I've needed to have a conversation with, is that I know I'm not making a judgment. I'm saying, wow, I heard you say this, I saw you do that, and it had this impact on me, and I'm blown away because I didn't. It made me think you didn't like me, and I thought you did. I had this experience with someone at church who I was sitting talking about something, and she made a comment, and I responded trying to clarify it, and I asked the clarification question in such a way that when she said, well, that is what I meant, it was kind of a slap. And I thought, oh, okay. And I didn't do anything more than that. I just finished what I was doing and got up and left the table. It was having coffee after church, or started talking to the person next to me. I mean, I thought, okay, well, I didn't. You don't look at someone on Sunday morning and say, so what's up with you? What's your problem? You can't quite do that. So about a month later, she came and gave me a CD that she had made for me of some music that she particularly liked. And I said, thank you. I really like this. I said, boy, the last time we talked, the way you responded to my question made me think you didn't like me. And she said, well, I realized afterwards that I'd been acting that way with a lot of people, and I really had to do some soul searching. So, I mean, she was someone who was already introspective. But if there hadn't been anyone else around and I had felt closer to her, I might have said, wow, that really hurts my feelings. Is that what you meant to do? Did you say that on purpose that there's something wrong with what I'm doing, or what's going on? And, I would have probably spent the afternoon with her, so I'm not sure I wanted to do that. But in theory, you would not have this conversation with someone that you are perceiving to be difficult unless you really care about them.
Right.
So it's somebody that you work with closely, or is your next door neighbor, or you're serving on a committee together, and you need to have a good relationship with them.
Committee members are really difficult. When they have different ideas, it's just so everybody wants their own way.
Yep.
And usually what needs to happen is a little bit of everybody's idea gets thrown in the hat. So what comes out of the committee is really good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But
yes, but they all have to say something about it first, and they have to passionately argue for their piece of it.
Yeah.
I was
like
on a committee.
To me.
Yep.
I was going to say I was on a nominated to be on a committee. It was part of the student government when I was in college. I think I was a sophomore, and I went to the first meeting, and there was a couple of professors, and then there were each student reps, and they brought up an issue, and I said, well, it sounds like this. Wouldn't this be the obvious solution? Every person around the table had to say something, and they all said the same thing I did. And I remember thinking, didn't I just say that? And it wasn't a matter of, oh yes, well, you said that so clearly, Sam. Let's move on that. Everybody had to say something to feel that they had a voice in it, and we did move on it. They may have changed it a little bit. I remember writing my father a letter and saying, how do you work with people with all these committees? It's just deadly.
But it can be.
Well, that's what he said. He said it's horrible. He hated it. Was a part of his job that he hated. But I also found that when I worked with people on a team and we knew where we were going, there wasn't the same need for everybody to make their opinions known. So it has to do with how well people know each other.
And you have to kind of work through things together because, I mean, we've been on a committee where, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, about people like, you know, really having a fist fight. And then I remember even lashing out back. And I never, because, I mean, I remember.
Throwing turkeys at each other or something?
No, fists and all kinds of craziness.
Yeah.
But I remember, you know, going from the point of being nervous to stand up in a room of people and say, you know, this is Lisa and this is what we do, to being on a committee meeting, and then the head dude of this association called somebody the C word. And I was in the bathroom and literally flew out the bathroom and decided, like, you know what, this is way out of it. It's inappropriate, blah, blah, blah. And of course, then, I mean, at that point, I'd lost all respect, and just that was it. And I just, you know, mouthed off. And yet it was weird because I was like, you don't do that. You, number one, who do you think you are? And then half the women didn't care. They're like, oh, and I was looking at them going, so weird. What is wrong with you? You know, and so then I realized, like, okay, literally did I even flush the toilet? Because I was in the bathroom, right, and go flying out. And I'm like, and I knew this person really well enough to just go, hey, that's enough. But that these committees, and you do have to go through these roll and tumble things where you do get to know each other. Again, now people start to know each other's buttons, right? So obviously, somebody calls a woman that is the button that I'm going to say something back. Right. And I can handle it more if they do it to me. But if they do it to somebody else, I'm like, that's wrong. And I was devastated. We had a guest there that was the sweetest, most innocent young lady who was rescuing animals. And I don't want to give the whole story away because people know who I'm talking about. Some people do.
Embarrassing.
And I just was so horrified. And that lady was looking to be a board member. And I was like, you lost that. And so anyway, that kind of thing, you do learn each other's ups and downs. But at the end of the day, like as soon as I could bail off the committee, I did. I was like, okay, I've had that experience, enough of that. The thing is, you can't stay, because eventually if that is something that is repetitive and you've said something, you've been polite, there's sometimes times to walk away. But say in a relationship, sometimes you have to realize no one's going to change overnight. So there is like this patience level of how do you have to have that communication of like code words or something like that, like where you're not the nag saying, now you're doing it again, you're calling me that again, you know.
Well, I think if it's that, you might start saying, do you realize that you're calling me dad? And then 2 months later say, do you realize that you're doing the same thing you've just given it different words. Hang on, that's my other.
It's different, yeah. We've gone through the alphabet now, and it's still the same meaning. That's it. But
you're still trying to tell me that you think you're smarter than I am, or whatever. Whatever the word.
Like if you want to go back and read the minutes of a committee meeting, some of the things that happened never make it into the minutes.
Well, as a secretary of an organization, I used to say after the whole discussion, I'd say, what do we want in the minutes about this? And it was always the action.
Ooh.
All they wanted was whatever the action was. And legally, that's really all you need in your minutes.
Right.
So that because I wasn't going to write down Mrs. So-and-so said this and Mr. So-and-so said that, because what mattered was what the group decided in the end. But yeah, when someone does that where it's a pejorative term, description, disrespectful, I think more and more in our country we're finally standing up and saying, you can't say that to me, or you can't call women that, or that's not okay. But what I don't hear always is someone saying, and here's why. Because I mean, I understand that all these men have been using sex, or I think what happened is every man over 40 or 50 or whatever who's in the theater business, probably any business, they can't look at women without thinking of sex. It's genetic. That's the way they have, and in many cases they got away with it, so that women allowed men to have liberties so that they wouldn't lose their job, and other women didn't say anything because they didn't want to lose their job either. And I'm seeing this backlash now where, we're being mean to the men. And I'm saying, I don't think so. It's just that men have got to realize that women don't look at men as a sexual object all the time. We look at a man and say, yeah, he's attractive or not. Or maybe he'd be fun to go to bed with or not, if we're heterosexual. But, but men don't have, and men can do that in their heads, but they don't have to act on it, So a woman sitting in a meeting gets talked about, oh, your hair looks pretty, and those are nice earrings, and what a nice necklace. But nobody looks at a man and says, gee, I love your tie. Or if a woman does it, they think you're coming on to them. So it's
interesting about how that happens. I remember when Nancy, we were just started the magazine in this country, and we were back in our printing days. And, the printing bills, let me tell you, printing, the amount of copies of magazines that we were doing were the craziest thing. So the investments were not cheap, And I remember we were moving from printer to printer. We were trying to keep it as local as possible. And I remember we'd go in, and I was in my early 20s when we, started. And we sit down, and here's the big fancy conference room and everything. And the sales guy, there was this, he's a few decades older than us, quite a few. Anyway, he looks at Nancy, and we're getting into the billing process, the cost part of what we're doing. We've gone through what they can do for us, but now let's look at the money. And he looks to Nancy, doesn't acknowledge me because I'm younger. And I had to really fight my way as a young entrepreneur through older men looking down at a younger woman, thinking she knows nothing. I remember even one client when we first went, the one guy turned to Nancy and said, which one of you, because I was the sales part of it, which one is you the bullshit, excuse my language, and which one is you the one with the brains? And it was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? But this guy, this printer anyway, going back to him, he turns around and looks at Nancy and goes, oh, that's a lovely shirt you have. Okay, so we'd been with you're wearing and looking, at her shirt and other parts of that. And it was so, we just we got up and just left.
The end of that.
Because if you see someone at the first time, you're like, oh, I love that shirt. That shirt looks good on you, or something like that. You normally do it when you first see them, not when you're talking about money. That was so degrading.
Yeah.
I said that to a woman on the way.
Now. That'll be the end of that.
Yeah. Man.
And the look of shock is
yeah.
amazing. Like a total, you realize later when you think about certain situations like that, where you understand later that they really had no idea what just
Well,
happened.
that's my point. There's a whole education process here around what's sexism and what's being making women uncomfortable, having making men and women, I guess, probably making an unsafe work environment. So 100 years ago, the men said ladies shouldn't be in the work environment, period. They can't do the work. Well, they just didn't want women around to distract them. And we're now saying, hey, you need to learn not to be distracted. Get over it.
I know, but look at how we dress today compared to 100 years ago.
Well, I know.
The
That's
dress
the other
was
thing.
to make sure they couldn't be distracted.
Well, that's right. Everything was covered up. So if somebody saw your ankle, it was really very
seriously,
sexy.
You have to be totally covered up to be safe from another human being.
What's with the ankle thing too?
What is with that?
So an ankle.
Well, if that's the only thing that's showing, that's where the
I know you could go up and say to them, "Hey, I'll show you my ankle if you'll approve my report."
It's like, okay,
my point is,
printing bill. Want to see my ankle?
I know.
Yeah. Well, that's in the it's not upstairs, downstairs. Downton Abbey. The daughter who becomes an editor of the magazine or newspaper or whatever, she goes to London and she works for a man. Anyway, she starts wearing different clothes because she knows that he finds her attractive, and she gets a better deal.
See? And we're all on all sides. This is that communication. And, and being, doesn't it at the end of the day come down to integrity? Speak with good purpose, but being
integrity. What is it? The 4 agreements,
Yeah. I don't think people, especially if you're stressed, and you're in a hurry. It's like the person on the freeway who cuts you off and then waves at you later to say, "Oh, sorry," but you still cut me off. That kind of thing. We're reactionary because we don't take the time to think before we act. And I think that most of the problems that we have between people come from instant communication as opposed to thoughtful.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, somebody walks down the street with one thing on their T-shirt, or with a certain, like a hijab. Is that the right word? That wonderful scarf that women wear who are Islamic. I mean, and people start saying nasty things to them. Go back to your own country. Hello? They probably have been here longer than you. I mean, so now there's absolutely no communication. Oh, I know who you are because I can tell by looking at you, and I know I don't like you. It's like, how do you know you don't like them? You never talk to them. You don't
by the cover, right? Yeah. That's the truth, and that communication of speaking with good purpose, that and having that integrity, I think, is so key, and not just judging and deciding this is the role I'm going to be, because now you've already, because whenever you automatically dislike that, someone because of something like that, then you're already in, I'm going to play control mode, because they are now fearful because this is a different religion or culture or traditions that I don't understand.
That really is.
And I'm just going to hang my hat on one thing that they've read in the news, or, I know we're going to get emails from this, but this is the truth. I mean, people are scared of the unknown. And so I think in relationships, then especially when, like, say, if this is a romantic relationship, the difficult person could be like really wanting this relationship, but becoming a butthead because, see, now that's really good for communication.
Great communication,
No, but becoming that way, maybe stubborn or controlling, not really realizing it, it's almost pushing, you can, how they how people self-sabotage, that will happen in a relationship, and unconsciously doing it, but consciously deep down, you're kind of doing it, and it's all fear because maybe you had a bad breakup before, that kind of thing. And so now you're, as much as you may love or care about this person, that fear of, maybe, maybe she's going to run off and, or he's going to run off and, have a whatever.
Hallmark is really good at doing that. They produce movie after movie where it seems like an unlikely relationship, and one or the other of the partners has something in their background that makes them say, "Oh, this is never going to work." And then, of course, by the end of the hour or 2 hours or whatever they are, they always get back together. I love Hallmark. It always ends well. But it's exactly what you're talking about. So the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz: be impeccable with your word, which is the excellence of integrity. Don't take anything personally, nothing. And that's
a hard
challenge.
one.
That's a real challenge. Don't make assumptions. And the minute we look at someone and say, "Oh, I know who you are based on your clothes or your hairstyle or whatever," we're making an assumption. And then always do your best. I've been in groups where we've tried to live by, spend 1 week being impeccable in our word, and then the next week not taking anything personally. And the list at the end of the day of all the things that I took personally.
That is
tragic. It is hard, but
there's so many signs that people send. I mean, you can be at the grocery store and the person who's checking you out rolls their eyebrows at something, and you're like, what did I do? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's body language, there's verbal communication, written communication. There's so many things that our brains have to filter through. And we're always in a hurry, so we don't really filter accurately.
Well, I'm not sure we really filter. We just take the first thing that comes along.
That's
true. She rolled her eyes. That means she doesn't like me. Well, maybe she has a tick. Maybe she just rolls her eyes.
Yeah, Nancy. Is that what's going on? Nancy's a good eye roller. She does. She does the eye rolling, and
maybe
it's like,
she
that's
has
why
a
we
tick.
do radio. No, but it is.
You guys.
There's always, I think, people have reactions to something you may not know at all. It's really true.
I know exactly where I got that habit, and I grew up with it, and my brother used to do it too, and we used to do it in unison because my dad would lecture and lecture and lecture, and I'm like, oh boy, here it goes. And he'd roll your eyeballs, and he'd say, "Don't talk like that." And we're like, we didn't say anything. And so we're like, nah.
Well, Don Miguel Ruiz has come up with a 5th agreement, which is be skeptical, but learn to listen, which is pretty much what we've been saying all along. Listen, and then what I'm saying is, if you can be really clear and not take anything they say personally back to you, then you can have a conversation with someone who's difficult.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Don Miguel Ruiz, it's time for me to go back and soak up on those agreements, all 5 of them.
Yeah.
But don't take things personally. I think that is just the hardest thing, especially if something you care about, or that is a very. I'm gonna write that down on my wall. I write things on. I have a big map on the wall, and then I start writing things like that because I look at it all day long.
That's good.
And it's like that reminder of like, remember this, remember that. But I'm really excited about the song that we've chosen for your segment today now, because I think it's really the perfect fit. It's called Be Kind. So let's put that as an agreement.
Be strong for yourself. Be strong. Be there for each other. Take care of each other and be kind. Pray for each other. Play with each other. Be kind. Come on, you've got to be strong. Pay for each other. Find a way to help each other to survive. Remember, what you say about each other is really just a mirror of your mind. That's the best line right there.
everyone, this is the title track from Borgo. You can go to borgoband.com. You can also see Brian featured in what month are we in? In the August and September, July, August issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, or just go to blendradioandtv.com and type in Borgo, B-O-R-G-O, and you'll find him. Incredible album. Can't wait. He's just putting out a whole bunch of new music, and you'll hear him on Big Blend Radio soon, back on there again, and so excited to play this. So Be Kind, again, borgoband.com. But for Sarah's article, if you just go on blendradioandtv.com, just type in Sarah Elliston, or just type in difficult person, and you'll find a lot of Sarah's articles, and always such a fun conversation. We always go on different, I feel like we go on a road trip.
We do.
We do. It's a communication road trip, right? And but her article's there. But really, go get her book, because it goes into, I was going to say, all stages of difficult people, but it really has tools and exercises that you can do, and that's what I really like about it. Where great examples, and then things to get things, on a plan to undifficultize. Is that a word? Undifficultize? It's my new word.
I like it.
Yeah, unravel the difficulty. Just, be kind.
Reverse it.
There it is.
Reverse it.
Yeah, reverse. Yeah, put your difficulty in reverse. And anyway, the book is Lessons from a Difficult Person, How to Deal with People Like Us. Of course, go to Sarah's website as well. She's got a great blog. It's sarah-elliston.com. And we want to thank Sarah, and thank you, listeners, as always, for joining us here on Big Blend Radio. Our shows air Sunday through Friday, and you can just go to bigblendradio.com to see what's coming up. You can listen as shows go live or anytime on demand. All the links to all the podcast outlets are there. And now we're on Spotify. Go check it out.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Here it is,
welcome.
everyone. Be
Bye-bye.
kind.
Be strong for yourself and everyone else. Be strong. Come on. Yeah, come on. Be there for each other. Take care of each other and be kind. Your head and hold the hand that's reaching out. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, and play for each other, play with each other and be kind. What you say about each other is really a reflection of your mind. Come on. Yeah, come on. Pray for each other, play with each other and be kind. What you say about each other is really just a mirror of your mind.